Imagine telling a story for 10,000 years. No books, no writing, just people sharing tales around fires. Now imagine scientists discovering these ancient stories are actually true. Aboriginal Australians have been doing this for thousands of generations. Today, we're uncovering their incredible accuracy. Aboriginal stories accurately describe when ocean waters rose after the last ice age. Think about your family photo albums from 20 years ago. You might remember some details, but probably not everything. Now imagine remembering exact details from 400 generations ago. That's what Aboriginal people have done through their oral traditions. Scientists studied Aboriginal stories from around Australia's coastline. Many stories talk about times when you could walk to places that are now islands. Others describe land that used to exist but is now underwater. For thousands of years, elders told children about ancestors who lived on dry land, where there is only ocean today. Researchers compared these stories with geological evidence. They found something amazing. The stories matched perfectly with scientific data about sea level changes. When the Ice Age ended around 12,000 years ago, massive ice sheets melted. Ocean levels rose by over 400 feet worldwide. The Aboriginal stories describe exactly what scientists now know happened. They tell of walking across land bridges that no longer exist. They remember fishing spots that are now 50 feet underwater. Some stories even describe the gradual flooding process, not just the result. One story from the Torres Strait describes a time when Australia and New Guinea were connected. People could walk between them easily. Scientists have proven that this land bridge existed until about 8,000 years ago. The story preserves this geographical truth with perfect accuracy. Another example comes from Port Phillip Bay near Melbourne. Aboriginal stories describe when the bay was a large plain with a river running through it. Underwater surveys have found exactly what the stories describe. An ancient river system lies beneath the bay waters. These aren't vague myths or legends. They're precise historical records passed down through generations. Each story contains specific geographical details that match modern scientific discoveries. The accuracy is remarkable for information shared only through speaking. How do you think people today will remember our current coastlines 10,000 years from now? Aboriginal stories accurately describe volcanic eruptions that happened thousands of years ago. Picture trying to explain a fireworks show to someone who has never seen one. You describe the bright lights, loud sounds, and colorful explosions. Aboriginal people did something similar with volcanic eruptions, but their descriptions lasted for millennia. Scientists have found Aboriginal stories that perfectly describe ancient volcanic activity across Australia. These aren't just general tales about fire or explosions. They contain specific details about lava flows, ash clouds, and landscape changes that match geological evidence exactly. In Western Victoria, the Gunditjmara people have stories about ancestor spirits creating the landscape. These stories describe fire coming from the ground, rocks flying through the air, and rivers of molten stone. For generations, people assumed these were just creation myths. Modern research has revealed something incredible. The area contains evidence of volcanic activity from around 37,000 years ago. The Aboriginal stories describe actual geological events with startling accuracy. Scientists can match story details with specific volcanic features still visible today. The Ginrara volcano in Queensland provides another example. Local Aboriginal groups have stories about mountains that grew quickly and fire that came from underground. Geological surveys show this volcano was active around 7,000 years ago. The stories preserve memories of actual volcanic eruptions witnessed by ancient ancestors. Near Mount Gambier in South Australia, Aboriginal stories describe a time when the ground shook and fire shot into the sky. They tell of lakes forming where there used to be hills. Scientific dating shows volcanic activity in this area around 5,000 years ago. The stories match the geological timeline perfectly. These oral histories contain details that took scientists decades to discover. Aboriginal people preserved accurate information about catastrophic events for hundreds of generations. They remembered which mountains were once flat, where new lakes appeared, and how the landscape changed after eruptions. The precision of these accounts amazes researchers. Stories include details about wind direction during eruptions, the color of volcanic ash, and which areas became uninhabitable. What natural disasters from your lifetime do you think people will still remember 1,000 years from now? Aboriginal astronomy stories contain accurate information about celestial events and star movements spanning millennia. Imagine looking up at the night sky without any light pollution. Every star shines clearly and patterns become obvious. Aboriginal people used this natural planetarium to create stories that also served as accurate astronomical guides. Aboriginal cultures developed some of the world's most sophisticated astronomy knowledge. Their stories don't just identify constellations, they track star movements, predict seasonal changes, and record rare celestial events with remarkable precision. The Wardaman people of the Northern Territory have stories about the Southern Cross constellation. Their tales describe how these stars move across the sky throughout the year. Modern astronomy confirms that its observations are completely accurate. The stories serve as both entertainment and practical navigation tools. Aboriginal groups also recorded events like eclipses, meteor showers, and supernova explosions in their oral traditions. The ULI people have stories about a new star that appeared and then faded away. Astronomers believe this describes a supernova explosion that occurred around 1,000 years ago. Research has shown Aboriginal people were among the first to notice that some stars actually move differently from others. These moving stars are what we now call planets. Their stories distinguish between fixed stars and wandering planets with scientific accuracy. The Kokatha people created stories about Mars that track its unusual movement pattern. Mars appears to move backward against the star background for part of each year. This retrograde motion confused early European astronomers for centuries. Aboriginal stories described it accurately long before telescopes existed. Some Aboriginal groups used star positions to create incredibly accurate calendars. They knew exactly when certain stars would appear on the horizon, signaling time for specific activities like hunting or planting. These astronomical calendars were more accurate than many used by other ancient civilizations. The Yolngu people of Arnhem Land have stories that describe the Magellanic Clouds, two nearby galaxies, visible from the southern hemisphere. Their stories preserve detailed observations about these cosmic neighbors that modern astronomy has confirmed. Scientists are still discovering how much astronomical knowledge is preserved in Aboriginal oral traditions. How do you think ancient people without telescopes could observe space so accurately? Aboriginal stories contain accurate information about extinct animals and their behaviors from thousands of years ago. Think about trying to describe a dinosaur to someone who has never seen one. You'd need to remember details about size, appearance, and behavior. Aboriginal people did exactly this with animals that lived alongside their ancestors but disappeared long ago. Aboriginal oral traditions preserve detailed information about Australian megafauna, giant animals that went extinct around 40,000 years ago. These stories describe creatures that scientists have only recently discovered through fossil evidence. The Diprotodon was a massive wombat-like animal weighing over 6,000 pounds. Aboriginal stories from different regions describe giant furry animals that lived in groups and ate plants. These descriptions match perfectly with what paleontologists have learned about Diprotodon behavior and appearance. Stories also describe giant birds that couldn't fly but could run extremely fast. Scientists have identified these as describing Genyornis, a massive flightless bird that stood over 6 feet tall. Aboriginal accounts include details about their nesting habits and preferred food sources that match fossil evidence. The megalania was a giant monitor lizard measuring over 20 feet long. Aboriginal stories describe huge lizards that were dangerous hunters. Some stories include specific details about their hunting techniques and preferred prey that scientists have confirmed through research. These aren't vague descriptions of big animals. Aboriginal stories contain precise information about animal sizes, behaviors, diet, and habitat preferences. Many details couldn't be guessed and must come from direct observation by ancient ancestors. The thylacoleo was a marsupial lion with powerful jaws and retractable claws. Aboriginal stories describe large predators with specific hunting behaviors that match what scientists know about thylacoleo biology. The stories even describe their distinctive claw marks, which paleontologists have found on fossil bones. Research suggests Aboriginal people lived alongside these giant animals for thousands of years. Their stories preserve first-hand accounts of creatures that modern science has only known through fossils. This oral tradition represents one of the longest continuous historical records on Earth. What do you think caused these giant animals to disappear from Australia? Aboriginal Australian cultures have maintained the world's oldest continuous oral traditions for over 65,000 years. Their stories accurately preserve information about rising sea levels, volcanic eruptions, astronomical observations, and extinct animals. Modern science continues to confirm the remarkable accuracy of these ancient accounts. These oral histories represent humanity's longest-running historical record, proving that spoken stories can preserve factual information across hundreds of generations with incredible precision. What other ancient stories might contain scientific truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing discoveries from our past.